All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, Judith.
And welcome to another Shabbat where God has commanded us from Genesis, a very sheet in Hebrew, to honor the Sabbath day because He hallowed it after He created everything in the first 6 days. He ceased from creation on the seventh day, and He hallowed the seventh day. And another thing that He did when Israel came out of Egypt, and they were in the wilderness for 40 years, and He provided manna. They were to collect manna for 5 days, and they all collected the same amount. If somebody collected less, it turned out to be the same. If somebody collected more, it turned out to be the same. If they kept it over and didn't eat it all in one day, it would spoil. And so on the 6th day, though, He commanded that they collect twice as much so that they would not have to go out on the 7th day, and the manna didn't spoil. So we say, or John usually says,
the Sabbath day is on God.
Because God provides. And He gave such great examples. And the thing that we have to remember as believers is that everything didn't start at the New Testament. Far from it. The New Testament is built upon what we call the Old Testament, the Torah, the writings of Ketuvim, and the Nevi'im, the prophets. So God, this is a seamless thing that God is doing. He did not change anything. It continues on through the New Testament because we find Yeshua observing the Sabbath and the feast days. So we come from the Torah to the New Testaments, and again, we continue to observe the Sabbath. Nothing stopped. God is the same in the Torah as He is in the New Testament. And so we observe Shabbat also because Shabbat is a rehearsal for the millennial reign, the 7th year, the 1,000 year, when Yeshua returns and reigns on earth for 1,000 years. So this Shabbat has everything to do with what God started in the Torah and what He will finish from the book of Revelations. So each week, the Jewish people read what they call a Parshah, or a portion of the Torah. And this week's Parshah is entitled וישב. Get my paper, because I forgot to get it. And וישב in my Torah is divided into 3 parts. Just bear with me for a moment. It's divided into 3 parts. The first part is young Joseph, Genesis 37, 1 through 36. Tamar, Genesis 38, 1 through 30. And the third, Joseph in Egypt, Genesis 39, 1 through 40, 23. And it begins, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz meguri, aviv be'eretz Canaan. Ele toldot Yaakov Yosef ben Sheva Esrei, Shana haya ro'eh, et chahiv me'som, vehu na'ar et b'nei bilcha, ve'et b'nei zilpa, Neshi aviv, ve'yevo Yosef et Davotan, ra'eh el avihim. Now Jacob was settled in the land where his father had resided, the land of Canaan. This, then, is the line of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended the flocks with his brothers as a helper to the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought bad reports of them to their father.
Psalm 63. O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is, to see thy power and thy glory, so as I have seen thee in the sanctuary. Because thy loving kindness is better than life, my lips shall praise thee. Though thus will I bless thee while I live. I will lift up my hands in thy name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise thee with joyful lips. When I remember thee upon my bed and meditate on thee in the night watch, because thou hast been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of thy wings will I rejoice. My soul follows hard after thee. My right hand upholdeth, thy right hand upholdeth me. But those that seek my soul to destroy it shall go into the lower parts of the earth. They shall fall by the sword. They shall be a portion for foxes. But the king shall rejoice in God. Every one that sweareth by him shall glory. But the mouth of them that speak lies shall be stopped. This is the word of the Lord. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come, and may your will be done. We give thanks to you, Lord God, for you have brought us to and into your Shabbat, the day that you created and blessed at the beginning of creation, at the end of creation, and rested on that day, Lord, not because of tiredness on your part, but you foresaw this day, that man needed this day, to be refreshed and renewed, to draw closer to the God who created, to have their souls refilled, and to sing praises and worship and give thanks to the God who has been so kind and merciful to us. And we celebrate this day, Lord, along with our brethren the Jews, whom you brought out of the house of bondage, out of the house of Egypt, and gave them this command at Mount Sinai, that they should rest on the Sabbath day and have their souls refreshed, to sing glad songs, to renew their soul and spirit and body, to draw closer to the God of creation and become one with creation, as the God of creation desires to become one with us. And we invite you into our house, Lord, into the dwelling that you have made possible for us, that we may be closer. And in time you will draw us even closer to you in the house created by our Savior Christ Jesus, and he who seeks to come again. For the first time he brought us, he purchased us, and the next time he will bring us into his dwelling. And the Spirit that remains that to teach us and to satisfy us, we give thanks for. And it is in the name of this Christ we pray. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotze lechem min sawar. Blessed art you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us bread from the earth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Blessed art you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us the fruit of the vine. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, Judith.
Right. And we get into one of my favorite passages in the scripture because it's not the beginning of the nation of Israel. It's almost like one of the pivotal stages of the nation of Israel. So I very much love this and always find something new each time we read it. So the first part is young Joseph from Genesis 37, 1 through 36. Now Joseph was settled in the land where his father, was settled in the land where his father had resided, the land of Canaan. This then is the line of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended the flocks with his brothers as a helper to the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought bad reports of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph best of all his sons, for he was a child of his old age, and he had made him an ornamental tunic. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of his brothers, they hated him, so that they could not speak a friendly word to him. Once Joseph had a dream which he told to his brothers, and they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were binding sheaves in the field, when suddenly my sheaves stood up and remained upright. Then your sheaves gathered around and bowed low to my sheaf." His brothers answered, "Do you mean to reign over us? Do you mean to rule over us?" And they hated him even more for his talk about his dreams. He dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, "Look, I have another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And when he told it to his father and his brothers, his father berated him. "What," he said to him, "is this dream you have dreamed? Are we to come, and I, your mother, and your brothers, and bow low to you to the ground?" So his brothers were wrought up at him, and his father kept the matter in his mind. One time, when his brothers had gone to pasture their father's flock at Shechem, Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are pasturing at Shechem. Come, I will send you to them." He answered, "I am ready." He said to him, "Go and see how your brothers are, and how the flocks are faring. Bring me back word." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron. When he reached Shechem, a man came upon him wandering in the fields. The man asked him, "What are you looking for?" He answered, "I am looking for my brothers. Could you tell me where they are pasturing?" The man said, "They have gone from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph followed his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came close to them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes that dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we can say a savage beast devoured him. We shall see what comes of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he tried to save him from them. He said, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben went on, shed no blood, cast him into the pit out in the wilderness, but do not touch him yourselves, intending to save him from them and restore him to his father. When Joseph came upon his brothers, they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the ornamented tunic that he was wearing, and took him and cast him into the pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to a meal. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, their camels bearing gum, balm, and Edom to be taken to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What do you gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let us not do away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh." His brothers agreed. When Midianite traders passed by, they pulled Joseph out of the pit. They sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who brought Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he rent his clothes. Returning to his brothers, he said, "The boy is gone. Now what am I to do?" Then they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a kid, and dipped the tunic in the blood. They had the ornamental tunic taken to their father, and they said, "We found this. Please examine it. Is it your son's tunic or not?" He recognized it and said, "My son's tunic. A savage beast devoured him. Joseph was torn by a beast." Jacob rent his clothes, put sackcloth on his loins, and observed mourning for his son many days. All his sons and daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, saying, "No, I will go down mourning to my son in Sheol." Thus his father bewailed him. The Midianites, meanwhile, sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, a courtier of Pharaoh and his chief steward. What did you get out of this, John?
It's very interesting here, story, or interaction, but it deals primarily with, I guess, the title of to be able to say, and maybe I'll kind of explain what that means. It means to settle. And what happens, Jacob...
וישב. Did you say it in Hebrew? וישב.
וישב means, and he settled, which means that Jacob had gone through a lot of difficulties. He spent some time with Laban. He was running away from his brother. His wife, the wife he loved, died. So he's been through a lot of ups and downs. And he wants to kick back and relax. So he wants to settle. And that was a mistake. He shouldn't be looking to settle. He should still be looking to pursue whatever challenges God has for him. But he wanted to settle. And that was primarily not a good thing. Also, the Parshah's main subject here deals with, they're talking about his son, his children. And they're talking about the primary subject of what the choices they made. And, the choices everyone made. Now, Joseph was the favorite son of his father. And he made known to everybody that Joseph was the favorite son. And they didn't like him for that. So he also made a coat to accentuate that closeness that he had for his son. And the other sons did not like it one bit. And Joseph knew it. He knew they didn't like him, so what did he do? He told them of his dream. Now, you could say, I guess you could take that one or two ways why you tell them of the dream. Now, Joseph is good, we'll learn later on, Joseph is good at interpreting, Joseph was good at interpreting dreams. But what happened right now, he doesn't interpret the dream, he just tells them what the dreams are.
Right.
My thinking is, at least some of the teachers' thinking is, what is he trying to do by telling of this dream? Well, he's trying to gain their favor, saying, look, you shouldn't hate me. In the future, I'm going to do something that's beneficial to you or for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be helping you out. So you shouldn't be hating me. I'm going to do some great things later on in the future. You don't know it just yet, but there's a plan in place here, and I'm going to sustain you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what all that tweet's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's him sustaining them.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't get it. They took the dream the wrong way. But I guess if you don't like someone and they tell you something positive, you're going to take it the wrong way. And they did. So what happened? And even his father, I guess, was a little naive. He sends Joseph off by himself to give a report on his children, and the children didn't like him. So nothing good could come out of that. So, but Joseph goes, he inquires about it. He goes to Dothan, where he thought they would be, but they moved somewhere else, and this man told them where they did go. The brothers see him coming up, but somehow it says they recognized him, but they never did recognize what he was doing, what his dream was all about. And the big issue was that dream. When he came up, said, well, what's going to happen to that dream? And what they don't know is, they got a plan, God's got a plan.
Exactly.
And God's plan is not will overrule.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're going to play a part,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't know. So they come up, one son, the oldest son, Reuben, was going to come up with a plan to save him somehow. He doesn't sit down and eat lunch with him, he leaves. While they have lunch, caravan comes up, and Judah, who some think is one of the more influential ones, says, hey, look, why are we going to kill him? Let's make some money on him. And the idea there is, Reuben wanted to, and essentially Reuben was saving Joseph's life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the cost of selling him into slavery, but Reuben saved his life, and he should have gotten credit for that. But his brothers didn't see it that way, because I say his brothers didn't see it that way because of the reaction the father had when he realized Joseph was dead. How he went through mourning, and they tried to comfort him. And I think they didn't see Reuben that way. They didn't see, not Reuben, but they didn't see Judah that way after that. They say, well, you foresaw one plan, you should have come up with a better plan. But they didn't give him credit for that, and we'll probably talk about it later on.
Mm-hmm.
Judah, they didn't like him after that. And also, one other interesting thing, it says that Joseph went down to Egypt. He was riding high in Canaan,
Mm-hmm.
but he also, I'm tempted to say he went down as far as prestige was concerned too, down into Egypt. Now, he did get lifted up,
Mm-hmm.
but he went down as far as prestige was concerned. Some people may say it was geographical because Canaan was higher up than Egypt.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe so.
Well,
it could be too.
When they leave the land, they're going down.
Right, okay. So it's going down in prestige. Well, even so, it's still, they're going down in prestige.
Mm-hmm.
But even while he's out in that down place, he can be raised up.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is that Judah Joseph's life, but he never really got credit for it. I think that's all I have to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But this has to do with choices. Sometimes we make choices and we can't undo them.
Yes.
The choices are there.
But this is all in God's plan. If we look at it from above, the fact that they were, I think, just an opinion, that Joseph tells his dream, and then, and I believe his father, maybe you can call it wishful thinking or whatever, but I don't think his father ever believed he was dead. And even though he grieved for him, because if you don't see a body, you can, and you saw the blood, but you can still make yourself believe a lot of things, and perhaps just that a little part of his father said, perhaps my son still is alive. I'll grieve him, but perhaps he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
One of the teachers that just recently was talking about Joseph, and they were talking about his descent, that he was going down into Egypt, but they said that God made it sweet. Why did he make it sweet? He didn't go down in a garbage heap. He went smelling spices, because he was with spice merchants.
Mm-hmm.
So even though he had to go down, God said, well, I'm just going to sweeten it, make it sweet, make you smell sweetness on your way, even though you're going down.
Mm-hmm.
So they saw it as God comforting him by having him go down in the spice bin.
Now, there's one other thing. I know I'm going to jump quite a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
But in time, Joseph saw why he was in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is, why wouldn't he tell them this now? Said, look at it. You don't have to sell me in Egypt. This is all God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go down to Egypt to save you. But I don't think he knew the interpretation of what was going on, or interpretation of the dream at that time. Otherwise, he would have told them. It was in God's plan. And he really didn't say it was God's plan until until his brothers came down to Egypt with him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say that to Pharaoh, this is God's plan. He didn't say to anyone, this is God's plan. But I think he told them that story so they wouldn't feel bad. So they wouldn't hate it. He wanted them to like him. And I made one comment, why teacher made a comment. Why didn't Joseph tell his brothers, why did Joseph tell his brothers about his dream, knowing they disliked him? Perhaps it was because he hoped it would cause them to look upon him favorably, knowing that he would be of some help or benefit to them in the future. I think that's what I told him. And even, well, we don't know what this discussion was when they were throwing him in the pit or what he was saying to him. But it says, look at it. God has a plan going on here. I'm going to help you out in the future. You can't kill him. It wouldn't be to your advantage to kill him. Mm-hmm. But this is the part of it. It's the plan, and we hope that the choices we make are consistent with God's plan. Mm-hmm. Because his plan will always rule.
And he uses all things to bring about his plan. He used his brothers' hearts being hardened. Same thing with Pharaoh. They were intent on mischief. Mm-hmm. But God circumvented that mischief so that it wouldn't cost Joseph his life, but it did bring him to where he needed to go, and that was Egypt.
Right.
So
Their plan brought about. I had one person phrase that said, we can't change history. In the end, it was the great plan of the Exodus. Yes. And along the way, these people had to make choices to bring things to the place we are supposed to be. Yes. So things were supposed to work out that way. Yes. They made some terrible choices. There's no getting around that.
But it's also, just think of also with Jacob and Esau. It was meant for Jacob to be the carry the birthright.
Right.
Even though Rebecca, they manipulated. But it was meant for him. So however it was meant for him, God brought it about, allowed it, circumstances brought it about, that the rightful person got the inheritance. Again, we may see things, God sees things one way, we see things from a one dimensional. We're incapable of looking at all of the dimensions involved, and because we're not God, and God knows everything, the beginning from the end. So He knows how things will come about, and so again, in this fallen world, even the bad can bring about the good, and we've seen that time and time again. It's just this little part of Genesis of Bereshit, how God is bringing about. He's moving pieces, and He used Joseph's brothers to move him. He used their hatred of him to move him. Mm-hmm. That's basically what God did. Mm-hmm. And Joseph will be where he needs to be, and that's in Egypt. Mm-hmm. And that's in Egypt. Who knows if God had said to him, well, go to Egypt, I'm sure his dad would have objected. So, circumstances bring him to Egypt. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right, we go on in this wonderful story. It's the building of the nation of Israel is what it is. If we look, one point I'd like to bring out, and I hope I can bring it up. We see here the brothers, they are complicit. Oh, first they want to kill Joseph, and then they end up selling him to slavery for 30 pieces of silver. Is it 30 pieces of sharp 20? Okay, in the crucifixion, the leading up to the crucifixion of Yeshua, we find that Yeshua's brothers, and I mean his people, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but we see them basically doing the same thing, where they themselves, and I think they said it, they said, we can't put him to death. And so that's why they took him to the Roman government, or Pilate. Mm-hmm. And the Roman government put Yeshua to death. Here again, we find that kind of same thing where the brothers want to kill Joseph, mm-hmm. but Reuben tries to save him. Right. And but again, he wasn't meant to save him. And then we find Judah interceding and says, "Oh no, don't kill him. Right. Let's sell him, and basically, if whoever we sell him to kill him, the blood is not on our hands. Basically, is what it is." Mm-hmm. So you find this hit, and because Joseph is considered a type of Messiah.
I don't know. I don't think Reuben, Judah's thinking was that, but you wouldn't pay $20 or something, 20 pieces of silver and then kill the person.
No. But again, I guess what I'm saying, he didn't want the blood to be on his hand.
Right. Okay.
Whatever, he didn't care what his fate was, but he just didn't want the blood to be on.
But so you don't want to give him credit for saving Joseph's life?
I'll give him credit, mm-hmm. But then again, the only reason he saved him is he didn't want the blood to be on their hands.
Oh, right.
That's what he said. He said that.
Sure.
Judah said that.
He was very influential.
He said, let's not kill him so the blood would not be on our hands. If that's the only reason, he said it now. He said it in,
what profit is there if we slay our brother and conceal his blood?
Basically, again, the only reason is that
there's no profit in that.
No profit that the blood be on their hand. He's okay. Come, let us sell him. What do we gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Mm-hmm. Come, let us sell him to the Israelites, but let us not do away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh.
He's trying to be persuasive.
Well, anyway. Uh-huh. Anyway, they ended up what needed to be done. They're getting Joseph to Egypt in a surreptitious way. They're getting him down there. That's where Joseph
made the choice, and that one of the teachers said, well, Judah should get credit for that.
Yeah, well,
it cost him now.
Yeah, well,
it cost him big time.
Well, All right, the next section is called Tamar, Genesis 38, 1 through 3. About that time, Judah left his brothers and camped near a certain Al-Dulamite, whose name was Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he married her and cohabited with her. She conceived and bore a son, and he named him She conceived again and bore a son, and named him Onan. Once again she bore a son, and named him Shelah. He was at Chizib when she bore him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was displeasing to the Lord, and the Lord took his life. Then Judah said to Onan, join with your brother's wife, and do your duty by her as a brother-in-law, and provide offspring for your brother. But Onan, knowing that the seed would not count as his, let it go to waste whenever he joined with his brother's wife, so as not to provide offspring for his brother. What he did was displeasing to the Lord, and he took his life also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, stay as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought he too might die like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. A long time afterward, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. When his period of mourning was over, Judah went up to Timnah to his sheep herders, together with his friend Hira the Adulamite. And Tamar was told, your father-in-law is coming up to Timnah for the sheep shearing. So she took off her widow's garb, covered her face with a veil, and wrapped herself up, sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, yet she had not been given to him as wife. When Judah saw her, he took her for a harlot, for she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, here, let me sleep with you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. What, she asked, will you pay for sleeping with me? He replied, I will send a kid for my flock. But she said, you must leave a pledge until you have sent it. And he said, what pledge shall I give you? She replied, your seal and cord, and the staff which you carry. So he gave them to her, and slept with her, and she conceived by him. Then she went on her way. She took off her veil, and again put on her widow's garb. Judah sent the kid by his friend, the Adulamite, to redeem the pledge from the woman. But he could not find her. He inquired of the people of that town, where is the cult prostitute, the one at Enaim by the road? But they said, there has been no prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I could not find her. Moreover, the townspeople said, there has been no prostitute here. Judah said, let her keep them, lest we become a laughingstock. I did send her this kid, but you did not find her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot. In fact, she is with child by harlotry. Bring her out, said Judah, and let her be burned. As she was being brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law, I am with child by the man to whom these belong. And she added, examine these whose seal and cord and staff are these. Judah recognized them and said, she is more in the right than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he was not intimate with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. While she was in labor, one of them put out his hand, and the midwife tied a crimson cord on that hand, to signify this one came out first. But just then he drew back his hand, and out came his brother, and she said, what a breach you have made for yourself. So he was named Perez. Afterwards his brother came out, on whose hand was the crimson thread. He was named Zerah. Zerah. Yes.
Okay. Very interesting story.
Yes, it is.
The one thing I wanted to mention was that this was after the incident with Joseph being sold. And in that first verse, chapter 30 says, Judah went down from his brother. That means they didn't like him. They didn't respect him that much. And Judah, I think, kind of fell in a pit. He finds a Canaanite wife, marries her, has 3 boys. First one was real bad. God killed him. The second one didn't want to raise sons, even daughters, but his brother, God took him. And Judah didn't want to give the other one to wife, so he kind of withheld her. The interesting thing here, I guess the one interesting was that Judah's influence was diminished, and that's why he separated himself from his brothers.
They married a Canaanite.
Yeah, married Canaanite woman. I don't think, was he married prior to that?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Let's see what the
I couldn't tell. I didn't think so. And his wife, his daughter died, but his wife didn't die.
mm-hmm.
And after the morning, he goes up, meets the woman he thinks is a harlot, has sex with her. She has twins. And guess what is the lineage of these
Mm-hmm.
2 people? They come to be kings of Israel. So this is the choices they made, but the choices, they're still in God's plan. They may not be the best choices they made, but he fathered 2 children by her, and they were the lineage. They were future kings. So that was pretty good.
Again, here's a woman building the nation.
Right. Now, well, she was going to do it anyway. Well, I guess if the sons were cooperative, they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
How did she know?
Always. I think women, that having children was part of women's, that was their inheritance, you know.
Yeah.
It was almost like surety for them. Because you see, who was fighting to have babies? Rachel and Leah. They're building a nation.
Okay. But I don't know. You don't hear much of Tamar, but she was more. Judah said she was more righteous.
More righteous than him.
Because this is what should have happened, and he made a choice not to kill her. I think that's all I have for that one. But other than from this, the king's the lineage goes back to
Not in the Messiah.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
See if I have anything else. Oh, one thing I forgot. I always bring this out. Let me go back to the first one. When when the brothers put Joseph in the pit.
Yeah.
I always want to remind people, because this thing is very serious, because it denotes a covenant. They sat down and they had a meal in verse 25.
Mm-hmm.
You always find, and this was an evil thing, but when righteous things are done, there's always a meal to solidify the covenant. Here we are having a meal. This is a righteous thing. This is something that God ordained when he had Israel collect twice as much on Fridays so that they have enough for a meal on Shabbat. And he commanded that they do that. Here we are doing the same thing. We've collected food so that we have a meal, so that we don't have to go out on Shabbat and earn a living in order to buy bread and whatever. God provided. And so we can stay here and learn from him. Again, We're sitting down and we're having a meal over the study of God's Word. It's called Shabbat Table Talk. And we're solidifying this covenant again that God has made with mankind when he hallowed the seventh day and commanded that we observe it. And we are doing that. Okay, the third part, Joseph and Egypt, Genesis 39, 1 through 40, 23. And let me just take a little swig of water. Okay. When Joseph was taken down to Egypt, a certain Egyptian, Potiphar, a courier of Pharaoh and his chief steward, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he stayed in the house of his Egyptian master. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord lent success to everything he undertook, he took a liking to Joseph. He made him his personal attendant, and put him in charge of his household, placing in his hands all that he owned. And from the time that the Egyptians put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed his house for Joseph's sake, so that the blessing of the Lord was upon everything that he owned, in the house and outside. He left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and with him there he paid attention to nothing save the food that he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. After a time, his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused. He said to his master's wife, "Look, with me here my master gives no thought to anything in this house, and all that he owns he has placed in my hands. He wields no more authority in this house than I, and he has withheld nothing from me except yourself, since you are his wife. How then could I do this most wicked thing and sin before God?" And much as she coaxed Joseph day after day, he did not yield to her request to lie beside her, to be with her. One such day he came into the house to do his work, none of the household being there, and sighed. She caught hold of him by his coat and said, "Lie with me." But he left his coat in her hand and got away and fled outside. When she saw that he had left his coat in her hand and had fled outside, she called out to her servants and said to them, "Look, he had to bring us a Hebrew to dally with us. This one came to lie with me, but I screamed aloud. And when he heard me screaming at the top of my voice, he left his coat with me and got away and fled outside." She kept his coat beside her until his master came home. Then she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew slave whom you brought into our house came to me to dally with me. But when I screamed at the top of my voice, he left his coat with me and fled outside." When his master heard the story that his wife told him, namely, "Thus and so your slave did to me," she was furious. So Joseph's master had put him in prison, where the king's prisoners were confined. But even while he was there in prison, the Lord was with Joseph. He extended kindness to him and disposed the chief jailer favorably toward him. The chief jailer put in Joseph's charge all the prisoners who were in that prison, and he was the one to carry out everything that was done there. The chief jailer did not supervise anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made successful. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt gave offense to their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two couriers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the chief steward, in the same prison house where Joseph was confined. The chief steward assigned Joseph to them, and he attended them. And they had been in custody for some time, both of them, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt. who were confined in the prison, dreamed the same night, each his own dream, and each dream with its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were distraught. He asked Pharaoh's courtiers, who were with him in custody in his master's house, saying, "Why do you appear downcast today?" And they said to him, "We had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." So Joseph said to them, "Surely God can interpret. Tell me your dreams." Then the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. He said to him, "In my dream there was a vine in front of me. On the vine there were 3 branches. It had barely budded, when out came its blossoms, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph said to him, "This is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will pardon you and restore you to your post. You will place Pharaoh's cup in his hand, as with your custom formerly when you were his cupbearer. But think of me when all is well with you again, and do me the kindness of mentioning me to Pharaoh, so as to free me from this place. For in truth I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews. Not have I done anything here that they should have put me in the dungeon." When the chief baker saw how favorably he had interpreted, he said to Joseph, "In my dreams, similarly, there were 3 open work baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of food for the Pharaoh that a baker prepares, and the birds were eating it out of the basket above my head." Joseph answered, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale you upon a pole, and the birds will pick off your flesh. On the 3rd day, his birthday, Pharaoh made a banquet for all his officials, and he singled out his chief cupbearer and his chief baker from among his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his cupbearing, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he impaled, just as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not think of Joseph. He forgot him." What say you?
Oh, okay. The interesting story. That Joseph tells the 2 men, the baker and the cupbearer, that God interprets dreams. But nowhere do we get the impression that God gave this interpretation to Joseph. He didn't say, "Let me take a minute and think or pray." But it seemed like he immediately interpreted the dream. So how did he know?
God told him.
When?
Does it have to be when? He's giving credit to God that he was interpreting the dream.
Right, okay. But when did God tell him that? How did he know?
God told him.
Okay, I understand. But I'm just asking him when. Because actually, it looks like the wine steward, I'm talking wine steward, told him the dream, and immediately, without missing a beat, Joseph interprets the dream. So what was the key? How did he know about how did 3 come about? I'm not sure. Now some, as far as the part next week's part, we'll talk about the 7 years, but I don't know about the 3 days. Now how did he know that the wine steward will be restored to his job? Because what the wine steward said, he was going to take the grapes, press them in a cup, and the cup to Pharaoh. That's a servant's job. His life he's given the dream. He was serving Pharaoh. So I don't know how he got the 3 days, but Joseph saw in that statement, you are servant prior to coming to jail, and you will be restored to your office afterwards because of what you said. You take the grapes, you're pressing. It's an active role. Now the baker isn't active. The baker has 3 baskets on his head.
And the birds are eating him.
Yeah. Now, the trick, birds don't come around live human beings because they're scared of human beings. The only way birds are going to come around and pick bread, eat bread that's on your head is that you're dead. And that's how he gets that in. That's why I think how he says he knew what would happen to the baker. And standing around with bread on your head, you're not active. You don't like a dead man. You don't need to stand around. Bakers, mix flour and stuff, they throw it in the oven. He wasn't active. He was stationary.
Well, how do you interpret that, John?
Well, I had some help. I had some help. The sages and some lessons came about. But it seems to fit. One has the idea of serving Pharaoh again, being active, and the other one did not. Plus, birds are scared of human beings. And they won't come around you if you're alive and moving. So that's where I think he got that interpretation. But one asked, how did the 3 days? I don't know about the 3 days. I can't.
So for the cupbearer or the baker?
They were both 3 days.
Well, the 3 baskets.
The 3, I don't know about the 3 baskets either.
3 baskets and the olive and 3 branches are there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, those still the three. I guess there was 3 branches and 3 baskets. So I think the 3 represented days. Now, how he came up with days, I don't know. Because Joseph had been there. Maybe the journey to Egypt was 3 days. I don't know. I don't know what it relates to. And none of the resources I've used so far mention the 3 days. It may come to me. But this is, now sometimes God will help you interpret these things by things that have happened in your life. By events that have happened in your life.
Right.
And the 3 days I don't get. When we talk about the 7 years and the cows, some relate that to the 7 years that his father had to wait to marry both his wives. He had 2 sets of 7 years. And he relate that to his father having to work for Laban for his two wives. But the 3 days, I don't know yet. Someone will tell me, but I don't know just yet.
Maybe God will tell me if you know.
Okay, I'm listening. So that's all let's see, do I have anything else? But this is all part of this plan. Now, this is not unusual. We may think this isn't unusual because God told Abraham, your people are going into a foreign land, which means they're going out of Canaan. Didn't tell them what the land was. The land was Egypt.
And too, what we forget, John, that these Bible characters were contemporaries of each other. And can you imagine that they had each other to consult? That when I have my other Bible that has a really neat chart, starts with Adam, and then it shows how long he lived, and the next son of him, like say Seth, and you could see who was contemporary. So at some point, they're all alive. So if they had any questions, they could go and ask Adam. And even after Adam died, there was enough people who had known Adam. So if they had any question, they could go ask the person who knew Adam. So not too much is going to be distorted. I'm sure as the generations go, it'll be distorted. But that's what they had, the advantage of firsthand knowledge from people who had seen God and talked to God and walked with God, such as Adam.
Right.
So that's what I think we forget, that they were contemporaries. They could go take a trip wherever Adam was living, go over and talk to him. So.
Okay.
Okay.
But I think that's all I have for now.
Okay. This is very pivotal in that here are things being set up for Israel to go down to Egypt and reside there, and they don't just reside there; they become a nation.
Mhm.
And how did they become a nation? Through toil, through adversity,
Mhm.
because nobody grows when things are easy.
Right.
It takes adversity to strengthen you. Even in the horticultural world, grapes grow when you trim the vine. You have to trim it, else grapes won't grow. I know that from experience. When I don't trim my grapevine, I don't have any grapes. But you have to prune them hard.
Mhm.
So here is God getting ready to prune this nation, so that after 400 some odd years, they will come out as an army of the living God. So, and that's how we have to look at these things, even in our own lives, that we don't experience adversity to destroy us. On the contrary, it's to make us stronger, so that we will be able to do God's will on this earth. And that's what's happening now. There is much adversity, there's much shaking going on, but it's not for our bad. It's for our good, our ultimate good, so that we do what God has sent us here to do until Messiah comes back to rule and reign on this earth.
Mhm.
Anything else, Kevin?
No.
All right, we continue next week's Parsha. And I have to.
Mix that.
Miketz. I'm trying to see the interpretation of it because it's okay. There were 2 years time. Pharaoh dreamed 2 years time. I'm not sure what Miketz means. But Miketz is the next week's Parsha, and it's taken from Genesis 41, verse 1. Oh, hold on. I got it written down. Miketz, at the end of, is what that means. At the end of. Genesis 41, verse 1 through 44:17, and it reads, Vayehi miketz shanatim yamim upar'o cholam vehine omad al haya'ar. After 2 years' time, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile River. All right, now we really get into it. Again, God is using circumstances to raise Joseph up in order to fulfill the things that he has for him to do, to save a nation and to grow a nation, because he will be instrumental in having his family come and settle in Egypt, almost like a womb, and where they will grow into the nation of Israel. They go in a few, I think 70 souls, and they come out 600 some odd thousand. Those are the men, but we're talking about millions of people. They go in 70 souls, men, but they come out a mighty nation, even though it may be few in numbers as we deem troops, but they are mighty, because the God of Israel is at the head. So we look forward to next week. Miketz. And I notice you're very good. You're sending psalms, and that's one way to do it. Let me get it here. The song we sing. Okay. I'm gonna let you start it. You remember the tune?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship his holy Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, and worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. I worship your holy name. I will worship your holy name.
Amen. We thank the Lord. Yes, we praise Him. There's none like Him in the heavens above, the earth beneath. We praise His holy name. He is to be honored. He's to be glorified. He is our rock, our shield. He is our help in time of trouble. He is the great I am. El Shaddai, El Gibor, Adonai Yireh, Adonai Sebaot, Adonai King of Kings, the Lord Almighty, the Lord our Savior, Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. We thank Him. He is our all. And He has, He is good. That's all I gotta say. He is good. And we look forward to this Sunday at sundown starts Hanukkah for 8 days and nights. And then on a week from, the week from tomorrow is Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is on a week from Sunday. So we look forward to it. We're especially, our heart is broken because our dear aunt who prepared Christmas Eve dinner for us every Christmas Eve for the last 17 years went home to be with the Lord in February. But we will honor her by having the biggest dinner that I can put together in her honor on Christmas Eve to remember what she did for us out of love and gratefulness. It'll be a big hole in our heart, but we will fill it with joy and thanksgiving, and the precious memories that she left us for 17 years in preparing banquets, not meals, banquets, to show her appreciation. So we look forward to that. So, we say,
Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.
Amen.
Amen. The whole world is waiting, singing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting, singing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting, singing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting, sing the song of Shabbat.